It's these constant things that don't quite make sense. It's like, and that's where I think some of the other parts of the gray area of whether or not this is satirical come into play, because like even the intro, like the credits, the opening credits has a very serious, sincere, thrilling kind of orchestral sound to it, and this kind of this like shadow that eventually reveals a gun and everything like that. So it feels like you're just about to get into a
I read that it was
thriller.
Saul Bass who did that, and Alvin Silvestri, who's doing the score, is very clearly mimicking like Bernard Herrmann, the Hitchcock composer. Like there is meant to be kind of like a classy thriller in here somewhere in terms of like the style and in terms of the fact that it's like it's a studio movie, and which it's crazy that this is like a pretty expensive studio movie, and it's like the only way to watch it is either on HBO Max if you're in the United States, where you're going to be watching a cropped version that doesn't have the scope aspect ratio, or like me, you're going to hunt down the old DVD that's like a little bit worse quality. But did actually have the correct aspect ratio. And like how is there not like a Blu-ray release of this? This is like such a good looking movie. Like Mulcahy's going wild with the steady cams, and we'll get into some of the split diopter stuff that he's doing. Like it has such a cool, like slick, grimy thriller aesthetic. And when it gets wild and it gets into like the second half, it's doing like full on like De Palma stuff. And it's shot by the cinematographer, actually, speaking of Stephen Hopkins, last week or 2 weeks ago, who did Predator 2. Peter Levy is the guy who shot it. And but yeah, it's just like it's a gorgeous little movie, and like clearly there's some traditional, just lavish studio thriller, just like, competent work being done. It's very sturdy in that way, but it's just also so ridiculous.
This feels like I'm surprised that this isn't more well known. Like it's only got 15K logged on Letterboxd, and like you said, it doesn't even have a Blu-ray release or anything like that. This feels like it would be something that like a dad would watch on Spike TV or something, or whatever the channel was growing up. It feels like it belongs in the Con Air kind of aspect, like things, And I just don't.
I don't know if it's just too extreme or something. That has to be it, because like the early parts, again, like when he's just making his way up to assistant DA, and he's a loving father and husband now in like the early 90s. He's living in the like wealthy neighborhood. He's making impassioned, like rousing, like courtroom prosecution cases. He's building children's centers, and most importantly, he's growing a sick stash.
Powerful stash.
But. And you're sitting there going that, this is meant to be a very charming, almost like sort of like drama where, this guy who himself is very stylish and charming, he is so enough to kind of befriend all the white politicians and end up on the cover of People magazine and all this stuff. But they want to let you know, he's also still comfortable in his roots and like on the streets and where he came from. Like that scene where he's visiting Ice-T's like drug empire in like the grimier, more graffiti covered pockets of LA, and telling him, no recruiting or dealing or fucking banging on my children's center, man. He's like, I know that you know these streets, and I know that you're not going to change, but you got to give these kids a future, man. Like there's such a like a studio drama in here that's like just so, like someone would just watch like a John Grissom courtroom movie or something like that, and you would feel like, it would have like the DA who's so moral he's willing to take his work to the streets and make his impassioned cases, and like all this kind of stuff. But the details that make this what it is are when he's like, when Denzel turns around to the drug dealers and he's like, killing kids make your dicks hard, punk motherfuckers. He wears out a grenade for some reason. You're like, where did the assistant DA get a grenade from?
The grenade was so fucking over the top. He's like, I don't want you killing kids. And what the funniest part of this is that when he's going up this project where they're doing they're selling the drugs and making the drugs, he actually sees kids running around in the hall, which is the hint of like this, these people are, they're damaging the youth and all of that. But then he is like, I'm going to blow up this entire fucking apartment building filled with kids if you don't stop selling drugs to kids. And that part, like that was one of the first really, really over the top ridiculous moments, because when he's going back and forth with Lithgow, It's ridiculous, but there's still a little bit of that. It's like you've seen this kind of stuff in an action movie before. He's being macho, he's being cool, whatever. This is the stuff that's just way over the top in like a this.
Yeah,
is the
we're in the details. You're like,
shit.
does this even really make sense with like the kind of movie that I'm watching?
Right.
Like it feels like the characters will just suddenly lurch in a direction like that, and the details are at first like they kind of crop up in these weird moments like this, but then the whole movie becomes that way, and it creates a world where those moments actually make more sense because you're like, I guess that is the only response to whatever the fuck is happening. I
truly came into this movie like I've heard that it's kind of stupid and it's over the top and all of that, but I still came into this movie with more of I thought it was going to be a little more grounded in its thriller aspects and its kind of cat and mouse game and all of that. And then it just proves with scene after scene going more and more over the top that I was in for a ride I did not expect. And it was so much fun to honestly discover that. And they do kind of dish it out slowly, not slowly, but it gets bigger and bigger as it goes on. So that feels deliberate. It gets
bigger as it goes on. I do love that with John Lithgow, it does kind of hit the ground running with it as soon as we actually get to spend some time with him. Like all the while, all of this is happening on Denzel's side, and we're jumping into the 1990s where he's having this meteoric like success professionally, and Blake is sent to prison in the meantime, and he's watching this success on TV, and he's stewing in the hatred over how humiliated he was by this naked rookie cop, and how his career